Okay, welcome everyone. Thank you for joining us today. I'm going to get started now. We might still have a couple people trickle in. So these Brunch and Learns are supposed to act as spaces to talk about issues that are important to our food system. So this is our first webinar version of the Brunch and Learn. Usually there's an actual brunch, and so I'm sorry that you don't get a brunch today, but hopefully in the future we'll see some of you guys at an in-person Brunch and Learn after this whole COVID situation calms down a bit. Okay, so today we're going to be talking about local food in times of crisis. So COVID-19 has highlighted a lot of really interesting things about how we access food, how we produce food, how our food system is set up, and so on and so forth. So we have three speakers here with us today. We have Tammy Taylor from York Farm Fresh. Excellent. We have Kim Empringham from Empringham Farms and the York Region Federation of Agriculture, and she also sits on the York Region Food Council. And we have Alex Powell from Clearwater Farm. So they're going to be speaking today about some of the impacts that they've seen on the agriculture sector with COVID-19. And how the public can best support local food at this time, and the opportunities there might be to strengthen the local food system. Okay, so first up we have Tammy, and I'll get the slides up for you, Tammy.
Thank you. Hi, everyone, and thank you for allowing me to be here today to speak about York Farm Fresh and what the farmers are doing. It's been an interesting few months, or a couple of months for all of our farmers. They've been sort of on the front lines of this as the changes are coming through, and they're evolving daily and weekly to modify their operations to continue servicing the community with food. So I want to give a brief rundown of York Farm Fresh and who we are. So we're York Farm Fresh, and we have I can't see the full the full thing here on the side, but we exist to connect consumers with our members and joint marketing, and we join together so that we can collectively spread the word of York Farm Fresh, and it's joint marketing, joint education, and the goal is to increase revenue and traffic to our farm members. If we can go to the next slide. For 2020, we represent 32 farms that offer farm gate sales. So what makes our members different than maybe other farms in the region is that they open their properties to the public. So the public can go to their properties directly and purchase direct from the farm. In addition to their retail operations, some offer pick your own, whether it's strawberries or pumpkins. Several have play areas for children, which is a big question mark for this year, if they're going to be able to do that. Same with pick your own. Or they offer farm tours. So in addition to their retail, many of them have different revenue streams that they rely on the farm. If we could go to the next slide. In 2020, we have 5 farmer market members. So East Gwillimbury, Newmarket, Markham, Woodbridge Village, and the Village Market in Thornhill are proceeding with 2020. Unknowns and previous year members are Aurora. They're not sure if they're going to have a market this year, and Georgina is questioning whether they're going to host their farmers market this year. The opening dates for all of them, with the exception of Village Market, are TBD. They're looking at a June open date, but it's clearly up in the air, and they're just waiting, and they're going to follow the guidelines put forward by the government. And we're hosting a webinar on May 5th at 7 p.m. To discuss specifically farmers markets and just getting a sense of what adaptations people are making and what their expectations are for the season. We're finalizing our 2020 guide map, and we're going to be releasing that in mid-May. And on that map is where we put the locations of our 32 farm members and our farmers markets. We're doing new to this year is our Passport to Fresh routes. We've done a Passport to Fresh in previous years, encouraging people to visit different farms. But this year we have 5 routes throughout York Region where people can go and essentially get everything that they need, whether it be produce or meat or eggs or cheese. And the idea is that these routes are pretty contained. And if you go and visit the 6 or 7 farms on this route, you can get all your essentials. We'll be promoting these for essentials shopping, particularly in the early season of it, given that we're still, physically distancing. We're not looking to have mass gatherings at these farms, but we want people to know that, instead of lining up for a block and a half at a grocery store, you could be going directly to a farm and getting fresh food in a safe way. And as I said, since COVID-19, since the crisis developed, the members have taken a variety of measures and they continue servicing. We have a page up on our website specifically for COVID-19 where we have our members and outline what they're currently doing. This gets updated regularly based on either the changes in their operations or the changes that come from the government. It's been very impressive to watch them adapt and quickly change and these are often families, these are family farms. To see them setting up online stores, switching their entire operation to curbside pickup, offering delivery where they wouldn't have offered delivery in the past. And they've partnered with other farms. One farm in particular has partnered with 2 other local farms to them so that when they're delivering from their store, they have more products available and they split the delivery. One will deliver to the city and the other will deliver locally, and that's how they split the workload of that. And again, these were all things that weren't even being contemplated in February or even into March at some point. And they're doing these very quickly, which is fantastic. And that's our website address there with the COVID-19. And as I said, we're updating it regularly. These farms are, for the most part, rather unique that they do sell most from their farm. We do have several members who do go into the wholesale market, in particular potato farmers, who are currently a little afraid of what's going to happen with restaurants being closed and them not having access to that revenue. But many of them, these are ones who sell from their farm. And as COVID developed, it's again interesting to see farmers react, because who knows better about the spread of disease and understanding how that can progress than a farmer. And these are farms who, like I said, they're in the retail store, but they're often the people who put the seed in the ground and grew those vegetables. So they definitely were reactive and being proactive with seeing what was going to develop. So they're still currently open and welcoming to the public to their farm. They just ask that you monitor what they're offering, and certainly if anybody is sick, they just request that you don't visit their property at this time. And then I think that's it for my slides.
Thank you so much. So next we're going to have Kim speak, and I believe I have slides for you as well. So give me one moment and I'll get those up.
Great. So thank you very much for inviting me to join today. And I'm going to start by apologizing. My slide deck, the one that I created last night, disappeared. So this morning, I just threw together a whole bunch of pictures and a couple of slides. And my notes are gone too, so I'm working off of handwritten, scribbled notes. So you can definitely ask me all the questions that I need to fill in the blanks when I'm done. So just going through the slides pretty quickly. You've seen from Tammy the picture of the York Region map, and this map has the green belt layer on it. Basically, that's where you're going to find your farms. And the next slide. difference between, if you've been out to any of the farms that have on-farm markets, they look pretty different. But this is the picture of a typical dairy farm. So there's buildings, but then there's lots of hay growing in the field. So completely different crops, depending upon what sector, what commodity is being grown. So the next slide shows you a bit of a breakdown of the larger groups. Obviously, there's some of the ones that have smaller numbers that just aren't on there, but we have lots of grains and oil seeds. So that's corn, soybeans, wheat, and then because we have the Holland Marsh and really good class 1 soil in most parts of York region, we have a lot of vegetable and fruit and a lot of greenhouses. And then we also, because we're so close to and in the GTA, we have lots of sod and nursery being grown, and some maple syrup. And then, of course, not part of today's discussion, but we do have a lot of horses. So they actually end up helping to support quite a few of the other farms, because the other farms will be growing the hay potentially for the horse farms. So that's a form of revenue for the farms outside of actually growing food. And then we have a few beef, dairy, sheep, and then poultry and eggs. Next slide. So I guess what I did forget to put in was a slide about my farm. And just before I get into talking about, because I am the Secretary Treasurer and on the board for the Federation of Agriculture, I'm going to spend quite a bit more time talking about my role there and all of the commodities that are in York region. But my husband and I and our two daughters, we farm in Stouffville. We have sheep, beef cattle, and then we also grow grains and oilseeds. So corn, soybeans, wheat, some oats and peas, and then hay for the animals. So as far as what we've seen on our own farm so far, the only commodity that we're actually trying to sell at this point, because we haven't got to the growing season yet, is our lambs. They're born in February and March, and we have 100 mothers, so we end up with usually about 200 lambs to sell in the year. And the first to go to market are for the Easter market. So this year, leading up to Easter, we really didn't know. Once COVID settled in, the word on the street as far as sheep farmers was going, we really didn't know what was going to happen, because families weren't going to be getting together in large groups. We were hoping that the message was getting out there that you can have a virtual get together, so all of your family together, and you could still cook your lamb dinner and share it with everyone on the computer. But the market was actually down a lot. In some cases, it was off by 50%, 60% of what it would have been on an average year. We were a little bit lucky. We had decided, because the market was thought to, and leading up to it was so bad, we held off to the following week for the Orthodox Easter. So the market did come up a little bit, and then the rest, so we only ended up sending 35 lambs. The rest of them will grow bigger, and they will go for the early summer market, which is a larger lamb. But normally those lambs would be sold for the festivals and events that happen in the summer. And we really don't know what that's going to look like either, whether there will be any. And then other than the festivals and events, those lambs end up going to the grocery stores. Quite a few of the smaller or independent or ethnic stores sell quite a bit more of the Ontario lamb than you might see in the big chains. But if you look for it and ask for it, you can certainly see some of the Ontario lamb in and amongst the New Zealand and Australia lamb. So moving on now to the pictures that you see. As far as the big issues that we see with the other commodities in the region, the biggest one has been the temporary foreign workers. In Canada, because traditionally we haven't been able to hire, or at least no one seems to want to work on farms doing the really hard work out in the fields. So for the last 50 years, the temporary foreign worker program has developed so that now there's 60,000 foreign workers that normally come into Canada to work on farms, mainly for the fruit and vegetable farms, but some in dairy as well, and a large number in the greenhouses and also in food processing. So temporary foreign workers were deemed essential. The issue right now, though, is because the bureaucrat offices in the foreign countries, for the most part, are shut down. There's been a real issue with getting the work visas and getting the approvals on that end to be able to get them in. They have started arriving. When they arrive, as you probably have heard in the news, they need to do their 14 days quarantine, which means the farmers, they have always had to provide housing for them, but they've had to rethink that for the social distancing issues, which they are, and the workers are slowly arriving, and most of them will be late if they do arrive at all. But the next biggest issue that the farms that have temporary foreign workers are finding, as well as other farmers that have employees, finding PPE for them to be able to work closer than the 6 feet, which in some cases it's easy to change their workflow around. But as you'll see in the picture in the bottom, there's sometimes that they just have to work closer. So they're going to need, the big question right now is the way the rules are written, they need to have proper PPE, meaning the same type of masks that we want our healthcare providers to have. So we're working on getting the okay for them to have another type of mask that's close to the N95. And if the distance is a little bit farther, whether it just the cloth masks are okay. But everyone is working hard, both from the health department standpoint and the province, federal government, just to try and figure out what those rules will look like. So the other farms that, grains and oil seeds, their issues have been getting the supplies in all of the inputs, the seed, the fertilizer, and what does that look like when the delivery comes, and how the same as any other food business, how does it work so that you can get your delivery without getting too close to the delivery people. Sanitation equipment is, especially for grains and oil seeds, we don't normally have to worry about cleaning everything with Lysol, the same as other commodities like the fruits and vegetables, where it goes straight to human consumption. Most of our crops, they're all processed after. So for the farmers, just finding the sanitation equipment is hard. And I guess I can go on to the next slide because I'm probably really short on time. So as far as the livestock goes, I've talked about the sheep. Once you get into cattle, I don't have a picture of chickens and pork, but the livestock commodities, the animals all need to go to processing, and we have heard in the news about the beef and pork plants in Alberta, Quebec, and down through the States being shut down because of COVID. And that is a huge issue. That's one of the biggest worries, other than the actual market price. The price has been really low because they're, the perceived issues with workflow, but also whether or not they'll be able to sell their product. So in the grocery stores, we certainly saw in March, we saw empty shelves, but it's not because we don't have the animals on farm to sell. It's because in restocking the processing plants, they also have to work on their social distancing rules. And normally the workers would be all standing beside each other in a line. So they've had to reconfigure the way it's set up, space them out, and slow the lines down. So even if everyone is healthy, all the workers in the plant, they're looking at least 3/4 of what their normal production line, and some of them are down to a half. They might have had 3 shifts in a day, and they're only running 1 shift now. And we have seen plants needing to be shut down. They have the same issues in trying to get the PPE as everyone else. So the same, you've also heard about the milk having to be dumped, and that some were saying that it was because of supply management, but really the reality is it really is just what's happening in the plants. They can't process the milk fast enough, both for meat, dairy. A lot of our products, over half of it would have been going to food service or to restaurants. And now that those are all shut down, there is an oversupply right now of milk because it can't be processed all to go towards the grocery store. So they are adjusting. They've cut back, being able to dry a few cows off so that they aren't producing as much milk. And the processors are trying to redivert into the type of packaging that to get more into your 4-liter bags, 1-liter bags, all of them, putting more into butter that can be stored. The next slide is really how you can support the farmers outside of going to the on-farm markets and the farmers markets that are going to be open in York Region. Most of the 700 farms in the region send their product, no matter what the commodity is, it goes wholesale. So just look for that Foodland Ontario logo, whether it is fresh produce, whether it is, and my slides really got mixed up. So the corn cobs up in the top, that's Rouge River Farms. So they're right here in York Region. The aioli is made by a company in Markham. We have 270 food processors in York Region that are converting those commodities into products that you can see. So the red packaging is tofu. So Sunrise Foods, they are in the north end of Toronto, but they do use local Ontario soybeans. So it's our products that are going into these processed foods. The broccoli is from 19th Avenue Farmers Market. The picture of all the pictures on the left-hand side I took when I was at the food terminal. So they have a whole area of the food terminal that is dedicated to local Ontario foods. And so it's very easy for anyone who goes to the food terminal to supplement, whether they're restaurants that might still be open with takeout, or whether it is some of the farms in York Region that are open with markets. They only have 1 or 2 commodities that are ready at a time, so they do supplement quite a few of products that are from the food terminal, but they buy Ontario products. And I think that's the end of my slides. So I'm sure you have lots of questions because I know there was lots of blanks. But thank you.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Kim. We'll leave the questions until the end, but I'm sure everyone has tons for both you and Tammy. So now we'll move on to Alex from Clearwater Farm.
Hello, I'm Alex from Clearwater Farm. I'm one of the young agripreneurs. This is a program designed to get more young people into farming. This is my second year in the Young Agripreneur program. Last year was my first full season farming and my first year at Clearwater. And this year I'm transitioning into more of a management role, and I'm overseeing the farm operations at Clearwater. We're a market garden organic vegetable farm, and we sell most of our product through CSA baskets and restaurants and some wholesale to small grocery stores in Toronto. And I feel like most people, especially the first couple of weeks of this whole COVID-19 situation, was really challenging. It was hard to adjust to the fact that we weren't supposed to see anybody, really hard to adjust to the fact that we have to change our operational procedures, come up with new and very vigorous sanitization procedures, and just those sorts of operations, which we've sort of adapted to over the past couple of weeks, and I'm feeling more comfortable with all of that now. And now I feel really grateful that I work on a farm and there's space around me, and for a large part, when we're working in the field and in the greenhouse, we can carry out our work, still see other people, and maintain social distance with relative ease. There are some areas we've had to put limits on the number of people working in our wash and pack station, for example. We can only have 4 people max at a time. But overall, it's nice to have the space, and I'm grateful to be able to work outside and still enjoy going to work every day and seeing my coworkers, even if it is from a distance of 2 meters. So 6 months ago, when we were just planning out our farm and what we were going to grow, restaurants and grocery was supposed to be a big part of that sales. So we did have to adjust very quickly to a new sales strategy. But luckily, we have a really strong online market backing us up, as well as a fairly strong CSA program. And actually, without any advertising at all, our CSA basket program sold out, and we were able to increase the number of baskets that we're selling from 160 up to about 300 in July and August. So it's a bit of a dent in the local food supply, and I'm really glad that we are able to provide local healthy food for people in the York region. It's nice that we were able to make that transition easily, and it's great that there seems to be more support for local and especially home delivered food than ever before. Beyond buying local food, I think that the best way the public can help support local food is to help advocate for reform at provincial and federal levels to make it easier for people to enter into farming. I don't come from a farming family. I grew up in the suburbs. Definitely never thought of farming as a career option or as something that I wanted to do until only a few years ago. It's just not, it seems like it's not something that's seen as a desirable career for people. And I want to speak to that a little bit, because for me, it's the most rewarding and fulfilling job that I could possibly be doing. I honestly have so much fun doing it every day and getting to be outside. And it's mentally pretty challenging too. There's a lot of thought that goes into every single crop that is planted, and there's so many variables to consider. So I want people to understand that a little bit more, that it is a really, really interesting career path for the right kind of person who likes to be outside and who likes working physically with their body. It sort of feels sometimes like I'm still fighting this internal or external pressure from the outside society that this is not a respectful career, or it's not for people who are educated. But I think this pandemic is helping to erode that stereotype a little bit, and I'm hopeful that we are going to see more and more people looking for food closer to home, and hopefully that means even growing it themselves, because I think a really big part of learning to respect the work that farmers do is trying to grow food yourself and seeing how rewarding that is to do. And I think educational institutions have a really important role in encouraging this in the future as well. I think children from a very young age should be learning how to grow their own food or how to look after livestock, even if it's, you know, chickens or rabbits. And I think schools should be encouraging that as much as possible. It's really encouraging to see actually a lot of schools are starting to put little gardens in their schoolyards for children to look after vegetables. And these are skills that will serve people throughout their lives. Learning how to grow food, learning how to cook it and prepare it. It's basic life skills, I think, that everyone should know somewhat how to do. And I just wonder, like, what would this world look like if it was commonplace for us to all have food growing in our backyards and in and around our neighbors' yards, and to have chickens running around? I think our environment would be a much cleaner, more beautiful place for that. So growing and supporting local food is not only good for our health, but it's good for the environment as well. And that's something that I want for everybody, is a clean environment with clean water, clean air. I'm really lucky that this farm is on the shore of Lake Simcoe, and I can look at the lake every day and see how blue and beautiful it is. And I can hear the birds singing. And
oh no, we lost her, I think.
So it's Kim here. The one thing I didn't mention, just to fill in some time, well, hopefully we can get Alex back. I am actually at an empty office at Markham Fairgrounds because our internet has been, as quite a few people know, pretty bad lately. We were good before COVID. When everyone came home and started working from home, it got quite a bit worse. And once the kids went back to school, it was even more spotty. So that's why I decided I knew of an empty office, so I could take advantage of hopefully some good internet for a change, at least for a few hours.
Okay, well, we're still waiting to see if Alex is able to make it back online. How about we have some questions?
So yes, I keep forgetting about mute and unmute. So yes, there are. There is actually a website set up by the province on the Ministry of Agriculture, Food and Rural Affairs, but you can likely find the link if you go into the province's COVID pages. They have set up a matching program for farmers that are looking for employees. So because there'll be several different types of jobs on the farms that have markets. There definitely will be there's extra work just trying to work out the social distancing. So some of those farms definitely will need extra staff helping to get the grocery, once you've made your online order, getting it delivered out to your trunk, or delivery to pickup spots, or actually delivery right out to your house. But there's also some of the farms that can't get their temporary foreign workers, or every year there's about 15,000 positions open that aren't being able, that they can't fill with temporary foreign workers. So there are lots of jobs, and there's going to be some people that have skills that are easily transferable. Forklift drivers can likely, with some training, be able to drive a tractor. So definitely we're trying to get that word out. And I have seen lots of ads on Facebook. Just what my Facebook feed maybe looks a little different than everyone else's, but I have seen the social messaging out there that we're looking for employees.
In addition to that, there are the farms who rely on pick your own, and they're now facing where they've never had to have the hands on farm to help them harvest their crop. So we have strawberry farmers, apple farmers who are, sort of sitting back and waiting, and they may find themselves in a position where they need staff that they never anticipated needing in the past. So that's something that we're going to be watching, and if they need assistance to help recruit people for those weeks when the harvest is peaking, we'll share that information as well.
And I guess to add to that, there are the asparagus harvest has started, so there will be some with planting and some pruning and weeding through. So I don't want anyone to think that they have to wait for harvest to get a job.
Oops, sorry about that.
Oh, wonderful, you're back. It's good to have you back, Alex. We had just asked a couple questions, but now that you're back, would you care to keep going? I believe you cut off when you were talking about how lovely it was to look out at Lake Simcoe and hear your birds.
I was close to wrapping up. I don't know if anyone heard me talk about the green belts and how important it is to preserve that for farming and for the environment. But yeah, I think I covered everything I wanted to.
Okay, excellent. Well, thank you so much, and sorry that you got cut off there. Does anyone else have any other questions for our panelists?
No, they do anticipate all opening. What they've done is they're adapting as it goes along. Some of them, there's some really interesting ways that they're adapting. If we look at something like a Cooper CSA farm, they've gone online ordering, and they have curbside pickup. They also have, if you want to still visit the store, you can enter the store one at a time, but they have a personal shopper with you who has gloves on the whole time. So the public isn't handling anything in the store, but you still get, I guess, the experience of going through and handpicking the stuff that you would like. So that's been interesting. Round the Bend Farm has really done a pretty remarkable change to their operation with, as Kim said, they've now changed to their job for their staff now is collecting and having the bins ready. And, you know, you have your pickup day and time, and you go up to the farm and they bring it out to your car for you. And they're all adapting in that way, keeping a really close eye on what if the restrictions or what the new rules of social distancing are. Hamilton Farm has put coolers outside of their farm store so that you place your order, you show up at your time, and it's contactless. It's there in a cooler sitting waiting for you. So they all do anticipate opening. As many of them said, there's very little choice for them. This is their bread and butter. They do sell off their property. So they're going to adapt, and they're going to, and what's interesting is many of the time this is their home as well. So when they're thinking about safety, they're very invested in making sure that everybody is safe. This is their family's health. So when they're putting in these measures, they're thinking about everybody's health and safety. And I don't know of anyone yet who said that they are not going to open, with the exception of one, and that's Blossom Makers. They're joining the membership this year, but the owner is currently in China. So they don't even know if they're going to be able to make it, if they're going to be able to come home. So that's the only one right now that's sort of up in the air of opening.
I'm going to jump in with a question. My question is, how will things look moving forward? So when we're looking at when COVID ends, how will the farm industry change, or like the networks that you work with, or your own farm? Like each of you mentioned, like Alex, you mentioned like the increased demand for local food boxes. Kim mentioned things like milk dumping, and also finding different avenues for agricultural products as well. And Tammy mentioned how local farms are adapting. What are sort of the long-term changes that you think we might see because of COVID?
I mean, I can't say for sure, but I definitely hope that the increased demand for local food stays. It's hard because we're also used to going to a grocery store and just getting whatever we want from wherever in the world, but hopefully people are going to be able to see and taste and experience that the food is fresher when it comes directly from the farm, and hopefully they'll get kind of addicted to that and want to support that in the future.
Yeah, I would like to say, as Alex was saying, the understanding the land and the value of keeping land agriculture. And I'm hoping that through these sort of scares we've had in the supply chain and the uncertainty of access to things, hopefully people will appreciate having this land right in our backyard that produces and can produce such quality. It's, you know, Ontario is bountiful. We're very lucky to have the land and the soil that we do. And hopefully maybe just one more subdivision won't go in where, you know, where people are saying, no, let's just keep this, you know, corn is important, or whatever is being produced on that farm. Hopefully that will change. And then I think with the innovations that are happening and the farms moving to more digital platforms and finding ways of getting access to the product, I think that's something that's absolutely going to stay, and hopefully that'll broaden the area that these small farms can service.
And I think, as you said, it's just highlighted how important our own food supply is. We're always, because agriculture in Canada is so big, we will always be exporting, and there will always be products that we need to import. It's really hard for some of the commodities to be grown in the winter. We do have a lot of greenhouse operation, but it's really energy dependent. So it makes more sense in a lot of cases to import some of the products in the wintertime. But I think what it has done in underlying how important our own food supply is, so that some of these issues with the food processing, with the livestock processing plants, we used to have a lot more processors. When BSE hit in 2003, there were a lot of new rules to follow, which were for food safety. But what it meant was a lot of the smaller processors that might have been in their later stages of their life decided to shut down because they couldn't afford the changes. So we have large plants and we have some small independent food processors. And through COVID, we're seeing a big jump in everyone going and sourcing out the small butcher shops and whatnot. So hopefully, just diversifying that part of the industry so that we have, if a big plant gets shut down because of the health scare, then it really affects the industry. But if we have more small and medium-sized plants supporting the industry, hopefully that's one of the takeaways. And then rural internet. Yes, I think on all levels, as you can see, even from, you know, when should we have shut everything down? The hindsight is definitely kicking in. What did we do right at the right time? What are the new rules or new procedures? What's working well? What could we change now that we've got time to change? So yes, right from the farms to the individual, whether it's the dairy farmers, the beef farmers, grain, they're all looking at ways. Agriculture has always been one of the sectors that has always adopted new technology very quickly, and so we're always looking at ways to improve on everything that we do. So definitely we want to be ready, and having gone through the BSC or the avian flu, some of the the past issues that we've dealt with have helped us, to be somewhat prepared. Every issue is different, but we'll certainly learn from this one too. Yeah, so we have started that work already with the, in 2017, the first ever York Region Agriculture and Agri-Food Strategy was developed and adopted by York Region Council. So one of the other hats that I wear in my volunteer life, I'm the vice chair of the region's agriculture and agri-food advisory. We have a new name too, advisory committee. So we work closely with the local municipal economic development teams, as well as MENA and the team at York Region. And with the new name and this new strategy, instead of that committee used to focus just on agriculture, but we have included the agri-food. So that means that there are, in the strategy itself, there's 45 action items, and a good number of them are directed specifically to agri-food. So the processing, the supply chain from getting things to and from farms, and then through processing. So the committee now, the advisory committee, we have a representative from Longo's and from food processing, as well as farmers and the York Region Food Network. So we're realizing, especially here in New York as part of the GTA, it is one of it's the second largest food cluster in North America. So agriculture and processing go hand in hand. And because transportation to the whole northeastern seaboard of North America is really within our reach. So it's very important to support the processing as well.
There's also one question I missed in the chat. It was sort of touched on, but it's slightly different than one that I had asked earlier. What food trends are happening right now that you hope will continue into the future?
One thing that we're starting to hear is that there is maybe not a renewed interest, but certainly an interest in canning and preserving, and the farmers who, something like a 19th Avenue where they sell, bushels, they're anticipating that there's going to be a big uptick in sort of the bulk purchase of produce, with the idea of, again, taking some control over the supply chain for yourself, is I suppose what the thought is. Get it while it's fresh, get it while it's local, and then, go back to the traditions of preserving and storing it so that you've got, your pantry is full through the winter with what you purchase locally when it was in season. And I certainly hope that that's something that continues, that we just stick with the seasonality of food and not always get into the trap of, needing to have, stuff out of season. Get what's local and keep it. So I hope that continues, and we'll be running some canning and preserving as the season runs out, and some tips of how to do that, from stuff as simple as just freezing to some of the more complicated ways of preserving produce.
Alex or Kim, did you have anything to add to that?
I was going to say, it's been really interesting to see how many people are taking up making sourdough bread. That seems to be quite popular at the moment. I don't feel like I have time for it, but I'm grateful that other people are picking it up, because I know I love to eat local sourdough bread. So having more of that available in the future is an exciting prospect.
Yeah, and I think just all of the cooking from home that people are doing, as opposed to just buying ready-made frozen dinners, or you're not looking at buying any of the fresh produce from the region if you're just visiting the freezer section and the quick takeout. So I think that's got to help. So I guess as far as affordability, so the issues that we have in Canada is that our labor costs are quite a bit higher than other countries in the world. So I don't know that it's going to be getting much cheaper, especially the local food is quite often it's more costly to produce and sell directly to the public than it would be selling wholesale. But I think if you're looking at it's certainly a lot cheaper if you want to get into canning and buying your produce in bulk as opposed to buying the pickles or the jams off the store shelf. So I think that's one way that you can certainly support the local farmers and make it quite a bit more affordable to buy your food.
And I think that the government also has a role to play in that. Food is a basic right. We should all have access to healthy food to eat. And if we can give huge subsidies to oil companies, then why can we not give that to food suppliers as well? Because like Kim said, we do have a higher wage standard in Canada, and we need that for our higher cost of living. That's definitely not going anywhere but hopefully up. And yeah, as a result of that, food will be more expensive if it's not subsidized by the government, but it is a basic right that everyone should have access to. And I think that's another thing that people can advocate for.
Okay, so thank you, everybody. We're at the end of our time. We're a little bit over. So thank you all for joining, and a special thanks to the speakers for giving talks and sharing your experiences with us and all your knowledge. Yeah, so I hope you all have a wonderful day, and hopefully in the future we'll be able to hook up another Brunch and Learn down the road. Thank you, and have a great day.